Revelation, as I've said before, is the principal book of prophecy in the New Testament of the Bible.
The Key of David with Gerald Flurry.
Greetings, everyone. The book of Revelation discusses a little book, and that little book comes on the scene in this end time when God says He stops holding back world events, or there's no more delay, as the Bible expresses it, which means all world events move into the fast lane like they've never ever raced along before. Now, this little book also talks about a deadly falling away from God's church, where they get to the point where they had the message of God to prophesy, then they stopped prophesying, and then God had to raise up a work to prophesy again. The little book tells us all about that. It also leads directly into the Great Tribulation and into the work of the two witnesses. Now, it also goes beyond that to the very return of Jesus Christ. I mean, it's tied to that event. So you can see this is a bittersweet message. It's a message about God's work refusing, or God's people refusing to do God's work and to get that message out. But it's also about the very return of Jesus Christ to this earth, and that little book is tied directly to that event. So these are major prophecies that are tied and attached to this prophecy about the little book. Major prophecies in the Bible. So we must understand them if we're going to understand what is happening in this end time. The little book introduces the Laodicean era, an era that's turning away from God, that refuses to do the work of God, which is supposed to introduce the second coming of Jesus Christ. So that little book plays a major part in the introduction of Christ to this earth. Now let's go over to Revelation 10 and verse 1, and we'll see what Revelation has to say about this little book in that inset chapter of Revelation 10. Revelation 10 and verse 1. And I saw another mighty angel come down from heaven, clothed with a cloud, and a rainbow was upon his head, and his face was as it were the sun, and his feet as pillars of fire. So here is a symbol of God's majesty, the clouds, the universe out there, and also this angel has a face like the sun and feet like pillars of fire. So this is not something that's of the earth. This is beyond the earth. And the angel also has a rainbow about its head, and of course there's a rainbow over God's throne. So God is letting us know this is far beyond an angel or a man. This is directly tied to God Himself. And it's God that's talking about the little book, and God that's talking about all of these events related to it. Notice verse 2. Verse 2 says, and he had in his hand a little book open, and he set his right foot upon the sea and his left foot upon the earth. So this is about the whole world. The angel had a foot on the sea and a foot on the earth. So this is about the whole world. It's a message not directly directed to the world specifically, but it's about the world. It's about a message that ought to be going out to this world, that must be going out to this world as a warning. It's something tangible that we shouldn't try to spiritualize away. There's a real little book that you can touch and you can hold, and you can know it actually came from God. Now that's rather amazing. These prophecies get so detailed that it's rather stunning. And it's an open book. You can read it. You can understand it. You can clearly see what it means. It's not closed to our minds. It's opened to our minds. Notice verse 3. And he cried with a loud voice, as when a lion roars, and when he had cried, 7 thunders uttered their voices. So this angel cried out like a lion roaring. This is a lion roaring message with 7 thunders. I mean, if we're spiritually oriented, we ought to be able to hear the roar and hear the thunder so that we know what God is doing on this earth. It really is an image of terror, but it's tied to the most wonderful event talked about in the Bible in the age of man, certainly, and how it's going to end. So how much are you hearing, and how much am I hearing this lion's roar and this thunder of God that has to do with Revelation, showing us what God is doing in this end time in a way that anybody can really understand it? Notice verse 4. And when the 7 thunders had uttered their voices, I was about to write. And I heard a voice from heaven saying unto me, Seal up those things which the 7 thunders uttered, and write them not. So here is a message to John the Apostle in the first century. And he said he understood the little book, and he was about to write at least the essence of the message down. He was about to write it down. And God says, no, John, I want you to seal that up. I don't want you to write that part of it. He understood something he didn't write, and it was about this little book. He said, yes, I know you understand it, but don't write it down like you're planning to do. Now, why was that John told to do that? Well, I think it's rather obvious that he didn't write it down, the message or the content of that little book, because there would be another man come on the scene in the end time to write the book. It would be written down, but not at the time of John. Now that is what it implies, and it all will fit into the book of Revelation. In other words, it'll explain Revelation 10 to you and fit it right into the rest of the book of Revelation. That's what this is about. So where is the written message in this end time? It's supposed to be here. It has to be here right now. I can prove that to you. Right out of your own Bible, I can prove it. Where is it? Where is the written message? Where is the little book that God prophesied would come on the scene? And He gave us a special chapter there in Revelation 10 and 11. Really, they're tied together as one vision, but He gave us those so that we could understand about this little book. And really, a great deal more. We need to understand more than just the little book. But now let's notice verses 5 and 6. And the angel which I saw stand upon the sea and upon the earth lifted up his hand to heaven, and swore by Him that lives forever and ever, who created heaven and the things that therein are, and the earth and the things that therein are, and the sea and the things which are therein, that there should be time no longer or no more delay, as it should read and does in the Revised Standard Version. But these are terrifying times, and this angel swore that this was all given by the Creator of the heavens, the universe, and everything within that universe, and everything He created the earth and everything that's in the earth. He created the sea and everything that's in the sea. This is the God that gave the little book. This is the great, powerful God that revealed the message of the little book. How important is this? Now you see, that's real spiritual thunder, and that certainly is a powerful roar of a lion when you realize that this all is coming to pass, and God's reputation as Creator of everything is on the line. Do you think God will bring it to pass? Do you think God will fulfill every little iota of this message? Indeed He will. Notice verse 7. But in the days of the voice of the seventh angel, when he shall begin to sound, the mystery of God should be finished, as he has declared to his servants, the prophets. So verse 6 ends with a colon, which means a message just continues. Verse 7 is a part of verse 6, where there's no more delay, and then it gets into talking about this seventh trumpet angel, the same trumpet angel that's going to blow just before Christ intervenes and changes the kingdoms of this world to the kingdoms of God. This is the same angel, and he's coming on the scene to fulfill his job in the very last portion of man's history on this earth. That's what his job is. And so this little book, again, is tied directly to that seventh trumpet and the return of Jesus Christ. Where it says it shall begin to sound, it would better read is about to sound. You can see that in the Companion Bible, in the Greek Interlinear. It's about to sound. The trumpet is about to sound when the little book is on the scene. And the little book is like a sign of how close we are to that last trumpet sound to introduce Jesus Christ to this world. See, this is a mystery to the world. It's a great mystery. And so these people that know about the little book will also know about the mystery of the Bible, and we continually offer you a book about the mystery of the ages, which explains this mystery and explains why it's a mystery and why the world doesn't understand it. But the people who have the little book do understand it, and they proclaim that mystery. And frankly, before you read the little book, you ought to read the book of Mystery of the Ages by Mr. Herbert Armstrong. Then you'll know exactly what the little book is talking about. It all just meshes together as one powerful message in this end time. For this end time fulfillment, and that becomes most exciting prophecy, some of the most exciting you'll ever read. But the seventh angel is about to sound. This seventh angel that cried out like the roar of a lion, it's about to sound. It's about to sound when the little book comes on the scene. Now, how urgent is this? How urgent is such a message to us today? I mean, really. I mean, what can you find anything that's more urgent or more dramatic than you're delivering a message, and it's like this great event is sort of hanging over your head in a very positive way, and a message and a trumpet is about to be blown. And we have all kinds of indications of when that's going to happen, certainly in a general way. We don't know the day or the hour, but we certainly know when these things are at the door, as the Scriptures tell us. But this is a mystery that has been revealed to the prophets. See, to the prophets, God reveals prophecy only to prophets and apostles. You can see that in Ephesians 3 and verse 5. You can read that. So God must be going to reveal this to a prophet. And there will be a voice in this end time, a voice for all of mankind, and a message that is to be proclaimed to all people in this very end time. Now, where it says the mystery of God should be finished, that would better read, shall have been finished. So the little book is here when the mystery of God is being proclaimed. And just before Christ returns, that mystery message will have gone out and been proclaimed to all of the world. It shall have been finished. The message of that mystery shall have gone out to all the world. And the little book explains what happened there. Why do we have to proclaim it again? Why was it proclaimed one time and then stopped, and then had to be proclaimed again, as we will see as we go along here. So we're right now at the very end of declaring this mystery, right at the very end of finishing the work of just what is this mystery of God, about who and what is God, and why is man here on this earth, and who is Israel, and what about this civilization today? What is the good news of the gospel? What is it all about? This book, Mystery of the Ages, explains that to you. Now let's go on down to verse 8. And the voice which I heard from heaven spoke unto me again, and said, Go and take the little book, which is open in the hand of the angel which stands upon the sea and upon the earth. And I went unto the angel and said unto him, Give me the little book. And he said unto me, Take it and eat it up, and it shall make your belly bitter, but it shall be in your mouth sweet as honey. And I took the little book out of the angel's hand and ate it up, and it was in my mouth sweet as honey. And as soon as I had eaten it, my belly was bitter. See, it's something we ought to just eat up. Now, you can't spiritualize this way. I can't. This is something that God wants us to digest. This little book that comes on the scene in the end time, but it's a bittersweet message. It's about God's people falling away and not delivering the message that He wants them to about that mystery and about all these major end time prophecies, and that's bitter. It's bitter in the stomach. God says they're going to go into the Great Tribulation, and 50% of them won't even survive spiritually. Now that's awfully bad, and the bad news in that way. It's a bitter message. It's a very bitter message, but it's all because they wouldn't proclaim this message that Jesus Christ was about to return. I mean, the trumpet is about to sound. It's about to sound. That's how urgent these times are. And God commands His people, His very elect, to just eat it up. Just eat that message up. Really digest it. Know what it's about. And you need to know, and I need to know. I mean, that's pretty clear, I think, from all of these prophecies. But notice verse 11. Verse 11, and He said unto me, You must prophesy again before or concerning many peoples and nations and tongues and kings. It's a message for all the world. And God said, well, there would have to be a man, frankly, and people who would support that man and that message that would prophesy again. But you see, there was some man before that prophesied, and God's people had the message, and then it stopped. They wouldn't do it. They became Laodicean. That's what the Laodicean era is all about. They all became lukewarm, or at least most of them. That's why it's called the Laodicean era. They wouldn't proclaim God's message. It got so bad that the work of God stopped. And God had to raise up another work, a little remnant that would prophesy again what had been prophesied before, and a great deal added to it, like the little book, explaining, well, what happened to the church? Where did it go off the track? Where did it falter and fall apart and fail God? Where did all this happen? When did it happen? What is that about? The little book explains that. Explains all of that. You see, we have to prophesy again. Now, people can look at that, and they usually look at so many of these scriptures in Revelation, in the book of Revelation, and sort of spiritualize it away, and that's why people don't understand these prophecies. You can't spiritualize them away. They're real, and they're being fulfilled. Even as I speak, 90% of the prophecy of the Bible is for this end time, and I'm telling you, it's being fulfilled like it's never been fulfilled before in the history of mankind. And there really isn't any excuse for us not understanding it, because God said He's going to reveal it. He's going to reveal it. But you see, when you talk about prophesying again, you're talking about really a great church split. The greatest disaster that could ever strike a church. The message had stopped. And then God had to go and raise up another work and say, do it again. Prophesy again, as was prophesied before. So who was the man who prophesied before? And who is it that's going to prophesy again? Who's this little group of people that are going to do the work of God and actually have the honor to introduce Christ to the world? You see, God commands us to prophesy again. He doesn't say, well, I'd sort of like for you to prophesy again. He just says, do it. Prophesy again. And He doesn't say, if you feel like it, but He says, you better do it, or you're going to pay a price. God will punish His people. It's a big, big job. He says it's for concerning many peoples and nations and languages and kings all over the earth. So that's a big responsibility that comes upon God's little flock in this end time. That's a responsibility that they have. This is a powerful prophetic message that God's church simply wouldn't deliver because they became lukewarm and just wanted to kind of do their own thing, act religious, but not deliver these prophecies of God for this end time. When of all times, these prophecies must be delivered. God says so, and nobody is going to stand in the way of them being delivered. Nobody. God says they're going out, and He has His reputation on the line. Now let me show you how this leads on into Revelation 11, and there should be no chapter break here in Revelation 11, beginning in verse 1. And there was given me a reed like unto a rod, and the angel stood, saying, Rise, and measure the temple of God, and the altar, and them that worship therein. And the court which is without the temple, leave out, or cast out, and measure it not, for it is given unto the Gentiles. And the holy city shall they tread under foot 42 months. That's Jerusalem and all of Israel, or at least a large portion of Israel, the powerful part of Israel in this end time. But there again, you can see a church split. There's an inner court and there's an outer court. Now the inner court is where God dwells. Where God dwells. I mean, I don't know how anything could be more exciting than to be where God dwells. But most of God's people are out in the outer court where God doesn't dwell. They haven't lost their salvation yet, but they're going to have to be punished to bring them back into the inner court where they should have been prophesying again. Or at least helping get that message out, or if they'd done their job, it wouldn't be necessary to prophesy again. But they failed God. And he says he talks about the altar, which is where the ministers serve. And the ministers in this era have failed God, over 99% of them. And he says, you measure them. You use the little book even as a tool to help do that. You measure them and you measure the people. Because we have to get this message out. And he says, rise, as if it could be rouse yourself from sleep. But rise and do this job, proclaim this message. And it's all explained in the little book. See that naos, temple is naos, it means where God dwells. This is what we're talking about. See, they stopped prophesying for God. They stopped listening and or explaining that wonderful mystery. And they're going to enter into the times of the Gentiles. Now, most people don't even know what that means. But if you know who Israel is and you know who the Gentiles are, you know that's building right now. And you can see it and you can feel it and you could sense that world conditions are changing and there are great power shifts in nations so that God can see that the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. Israel is going to go down. The Gentiles are going to go up in power and might. And that is a serious time for all of us. Verse 3, and I will give power unto my 2 witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth. See, the 2 witnesses are coming on the scene right at the time of this little book, just after the little book. But notice the beautiful outcome of all this, the wonderful end result of what is going to happen here in verse 15. Here's this same 7th angel that delivered the little book, now making this pronouncement. Verse 15, and the 7th angel sounded, and there were great voices in heaven saying, the kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Lord and of His Christ, and He shall reign forever and ever. How about that? How about that? This all leads into the little book, and the mystery and all of that leads right into the return of Jesus Christ to this earth. To this earth. And see, that's all one vision. And this same 7th trumpet angel is about to sound about the return of Jesus Christ to this earth. There will be no more weapons of mass destruction, no more war. All you will see upon this earth is peace and joy and happiness forever. Until next week, this is Gerald Flurry. Goodbye, friends.
Request our 2 free booklets, Unveiled at Last, the Royal Book of Revelation, and The Little Book. Unveiled at Last, the Royal Book of Revelation contains 80 pages and 7 chapters. This booklet is an in-depth study of the book of Revelation and shows how the focus of this book is on the royal rule of God's family, and that includes you. Request Unveiled at Last, the Royal Book of Revelation. Also request The Little Book. This 21-page booklet looks at the little book mentioned in Revelation 10. What is this little book, and what is it about? Finally, God has revealed the identity of this book. Our free booklet, The Little Book, will help you identify the little book mentioned in Revelation 10. All of our literature is free and will be sent to you with no cost or obligation. You will also receive a free subscription to the Philadelphia Trumpet magazine. The Trumpet looks at today's headlines through the clear light of Bible prophecy. Never before have so many prophetic events been happening in this world. The Trumpet will keep you one step ahead of the nightly news. Request Unveiled at Last, the Royal Book of Revelation, the Little Book, and the Trumpet magazine. All of our literature is absolutely free and will be sent to you with no cost or obligation. Order your free literature now.